Freddie here from Black Cat Cosplay with the very first episode in a series called Cosplay in Review. So this series is basically going to be me going through each piece of a cosplay that I make, reviewing how I made it, what I learned making it, what went wrong while I was making it, and if I wore it at a convention, it's going to be a review of how I felt wearing it at the con, the response I got at the con, and what I'm going to change because there's always room for improvement. So the first cosplay that I plan on doing for this series is TinkerBell. Cue photos. Alright, so this cosplay I worked on all the way from December of 2017 to June 2018, so that was quite a long time. Obviously I didn't work on it every day, but it was a cosplay that I put a lot of heart into. My childhood nickname was TinkerBell, so I figured, you know, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. And I will be uploading a side-by-side of the one that I did the year previously as opposed to the one that I'm showing you guys now. Talk about improvement. So I wore this at PopCon 2018 this June, and I actually entered it in the contest, the cosplay contest. And I won my very first award for Best Amateur TV Movie Character. Oh my god. But more on that later. That is an excellent story. So I think I'm going to start from the tippy top, which is her wig. So this is her wig. It has seen some struggles because I moved before making this video, and she did not travel very well. But this was my first time doing spikes on her hair, which you can see a lot better in the photos previously. I sewed in a bun. This is a Derek from Arta Wigs, and I thought it was in Fairy Blonde, but I think it might be actually a more yellower color. I can't remember exactly. Spikes are hard. I used tacky glue and a whole lot of hairspray, and they're very, very hard. I learned too late that if you cut the spikes to the size that you need them after you've already spiked them, you get this really like clunky and like choppy spikes, and it just kind of looks awful. But I do know how I'm going to fix it, and she's going to get fixed before Gen Con this year. I'm going to sew in wefts along her bang line to add more volume to her bangs. Sadly, I got those in Fairy Blonde. Hopefully you guys won't be able to tell. It's just like a half a shade lighter. And then I'm definitely going to redo her spikes. Definitely. The one biggest thing that I wanted to do with this wig is make it as screen accurate as possible, so her bangs are almost identical to the ones in the Disney animated movies. That was a very big thing for me. So yeah, that's her wig. I'm gonna go put it back so it doesn't get destroyed anymore. Yep, she needs some restyling. So very briefly before I move on to the dress, I'm going to cover undergarments. I don't have a lot of them with me, mainly because I can't find one and I threw the other one away. So first and foremost, I wore dancer tights, which if you don't know what these are, these things are amazing. They're basically just like a stronger version of pantyhose. The only time I've ever gotten runs in them is when my dogs chewed at them. Other than that, they are like insane. You can get them on Amazon. I got a pair of 6 of them for like 35 bucks. They make your legs look like Barbie legs. Like, they look almost flawless, and they match skin tones actually really, really well. So I wore a pair of these over a pair of seamless panties so they wouldn't show. And then over these, I wore a pair of neon green Spanx. Just little tiny booty short type things because this dress is incredibly short. I can't find them, but I wore them. And then because of her dress that goes like this, I couldn't really wear a normal bra. So I got silicone, what are they called? Silicone adhesive cups. they wouldn't stay on, so I ended up duct taping them. I don't recommend doing that unless you're like hardcore into the cosplay. I will do it because I love wearing TinkerBell, and to get the duct tape off, I just go take a shower and wash it off. It kind of hurts, but if you avoid the more sensitive areas, you're okay. So I duct taped the silicone bra cups, and then I used fashion tape around the edges to keep the dress adhered to myself. The dress itself I am insanely proud of. Is this little beauty right here. She defies gravity. It took 2 different mock-ups for this, and I forget what pattern I used, mainly because I threw it away because my dog ate it. But I will have a photo somewhere around here of it so that you guys can use it. I modified it heavily and mocked it out of muslin, but this is what the front looks like. It's got princess seams, and then the back is low cut, just like hers in the movie, which I wanted so badly. That was one of my biggest pet peeves with TinkerBell costumes, is that I couldn't figure out how to get such a low back with her wings. I think I found a good compromise though. To keep it up, since there's really no structural integrity to keep the boobs up, and I didn't want to add any clear straps, I added steel boning. In hindsight, I wish I would have doubled the steel boning. It isn't as sturdy as I'd like it to be, but it works. And with the fashion tape, it's almost impossible to get this away from me. The invisible zipper sucked. It kept splitting open, and it's insane to get down. So what I had to do is I had to tack it to the lining layers to add some tension to it. If you'll focus for me, camera, there you go. So I tacked it with a back stitch, hand stitching, and that seemed to do the trick. It's still a lot harder to zip up when I'm wearing it, just because there's so much like weird tension at my waist and where it's angled in. But as long as I have someone there with me, it's fine. No biggie. One of the hardest parts about the construction of this dress was the points, because I didn't know how to hem them. Originally, I tried to do the double layering, where you layer the lining and the base fabric together and then sew around the edges and flip it out. Didn't work. The spikes looked awful. So instead, I just did that to the top, so there's no bias tape at the top. It's just the lining and the base fabric. And then down here, I did bias tape. I've never done inverted corners on bias tape, and so they kind of look awful, but you can't really tell unless you're inside of my dress, which I hope no one else is inside of my dress. That would be kind of creepy, and it wouldn't fit them. So that was definitely a learning curve problem, but overall it looks pretty decent. We only have like a small amount of problems like this, which I need to remind myself to tack down. Other than that though, it looks pretty decent from the outside. My favorite part about this dress is definitely the paint job, if you couldn't tell by me holding it up. Everything is hand painted, and I tried to be as movie accurate with the painting as possible, but since artists don't really keep in mind about accuracy and it's an organic leaf dress, I didn't really have a lot to go off of. So I tried my best. So like a lot of the main little vein things, whatever you want to call them, are accurate. Like this big one here, those are accurate. A lot of the tinier ones, like these ones up here, are not as accurate, simply because it was hard to get any reference photos. But I did try my best. The spackling in gold is probably my favorite part, because at first I didn't know how to do it, because it's not something that shows up in certain lights. It's one of those Easter egg type patterns, but I think I did it pretty well. You can still see in certain lights that the veins are more noticeable, and then the spackled gold painting is more noticeable in some lights, which I think was a success. So I'm really proud of this dress. It was my first time cutting steel boning, which I hate doing, and I'm definitely going to tack that up to a activity I don't ever want to do again. It hurts a lot. I have no squeezing strength. I loved the hand painting aspect of it. It was great, and I do need to learn how to do inverted corners and bias tape, so I'm going to look up some quilting classes in my local area so I can remedy that. And then after that is going to be shoes. I love these guys too. My last pairs of shoes were awful. I didn't know if I could hand paint them, and I didn't want to color match, so I just didn't. I took the ugly spandex fabric I was using for that dress and covered the shoes in them, and it looked awful. It felt awful to wear, and the little puff balls were hot glued on. The cardinal sin of cosplay is thinking that hot glue can fix everything. Because what happens when it's really, really hot? So yeah, cardinal sin of cosplay is thinking hot glue can fix everything. It cannot. Do you want to know why it can't? Sure, hot glue is amazing and I love it for regular everyday crafts, but what happens to hot glue when it gets hot? It melts. More on that later. The first TinkerBell costume, the puffballs were hot glued on, so they ended up falling off, and I had to safety pin them, and I kept getting stabbed every time I walked. It was awful. So for this one, I actually got upholstery needles, and I sewed the puffballs on. So these guys are not going anywhere, ever, at all. These puffballs are not going anywhere, ever, and I sprayed hairspray on them to keep the fluff kind of contained. So far they're holding up pretty well. I hand painted them. These used to be a pair of gray flats, as you can see from the lining, just a simple pair of flats from Walmart. Painted them exactly like the dress. Again, I tried to get as screen accurate as possible, but there were no reference photos for the veins on her shoes, so I kind of just ended up winging it. I did the same exact pattern on the dress as I did the shoes. They look wonderful compared to my previous version. I absolutely love them, and I may end up selling them at some point if there's a demand for it. One thing I will mention is I know flats kill your feet when you're walking around a convention floor. They have no support whatsoever. They are incredibly thin. And so I got a half size up to account for an insole that I would be putting in them. So half a size ended up not being enough. So my feet get a little bit squished anytime I wear these guys, and it rubs up against the backs of my heels. Usually I'll just put like, the first few days that happened, I started putting a Band-Aid on over my ankles before I put it on my dancer tights, and it helped a lot. I think this time I wear them, I'm going to put a thicker bandage on it, and hopefully it'll stay. Because you can't really tell with the dancer tights on them, and no one's really looking at the back of my ankles, and it'll save me a lot of blisters. So yeah, if I ever do end up start selling these, or you guys are going to make your own, I would recommend getting a full size up if you're buying insoles to put in them, which I also recommend. So those are the shoes. So that takes me to the coup de grace, which was supposed to be her wings. These wings. I did roughly 6 different prototypes of these wings. Oh my god. So originally I did these puppies with thermoplastics, which is what you're seeing here. This is the first prototype, which is thermoplastic, wire, and foam. To hide the wire, I encased it in foam, and then I put Wonderflex over top of it. Are you done? You can't see the wire in the tiny ones because the bigger ones had the wire to help them stand up. But these guys are pretty thick, and I didn't really know how to cover the seam. Also, the vinyl I was working with was kind of awful. I can't seem to get it to do its rainbow thing, but it's supposed to have a rainbow sheen to it. Are you going to quit anytime soon? So this was the first prototype, and I ended up hating it because you can see a bunch of smudges and stuff on the vinyl. The paint job isn't that great. And it was way too thick around the edges compared to the middle, and it aggravated me. I didn't like it. I wasn't happy with it, so I ended up scrapping it in like March. And I moved on to the second one, which included Warbler. So this is the same vinyl. Ooh, see, rainbow. Same vinyl. It does a rainbow thing. This one ended up being a lot thinner on the tiny ones. The paint job was a little bit more even, but not by much. There's still like stains on the vinyl and stuff like that. So yeah, so I didn't like this one either. The biggest reason why I didn't like this one, aside from like the paint and the smudging on the vinyl, is because when I did the big ones, I forgot that I needed wire to keep the wings up. And Warbler, when you use Warbler, it conforms to whatever you're putting it on top of. So the sheet of Warbler ended up rounding around the wire, and it just looked awful, and I hated it, so I ended up scrapping that one too. So this is like 2 weeks before the convention. I realized I had to scrap it, and I'm kind of panicking. So I tried sheet metal. It ended up being way too flimsy. I tried plywood. The swirls in the design ended up being way too complex for plywood, and it just kept snapping and snapping. There was one other one. I tried wire again. I could not bend it properly. It looked awful and clunky. And then I finally ended up on foam, which leads me to these guys. So I'm gonna take the one that's broke because it's easier to move. So these were the wings I ended up using at PopCon. I love them very much, and I can't wait to redo them. So they are made of foam board, just 99-cent cheap foam board that you can get at a craft store. I got it at Walmart. It stands up on its own, no wire needed. Because of how I had to do it with the length of the wings, I had to make this piece and this piece out of 2 separate boards. So there's a little structural problem here because this wing likes to bend. So I added a little tiny veiny piece that I actually really like, and I will probably do on the second pair because I think it gives it more dimension, to give it more structural integrity. And then I covered it in cellophane, and I covered it in gemstones for pixie dust. So I really love the design of these. They stood up like I needed them to, and I could drill through them, so I could do this. They move! I was so happy that I could do this with them, and they actually move and work. So this is my base. It's made out of foam. It slides underneath my dress, and I keep it up with a belt. For Gen Con, I'm going to upgrade and do a waist corset so that it stays a lot better. And they move. Originally, what I wanted it to be, I wanted them to be really, hi puppy, really tight, so to speak, so that they wouldn't like flap around in the wind as much. I have a bit of resistance, but not a lot. I know how to fix that now, though. I kept them on with screws with little nuts and bolts in them. So one side had the nut and one side had the bolt, as you can see there. And I glued them on with a mixture of hot glue and Gorilla Glue. Not fun. Thankfully, I won't have to glue them on next time. Originally, I glued them on because I didn't do the screws, but now since I'm doing the screws, I don't have to worry about glue. Thank God. The biggest problem with these guys is, yes, they stand up on their own, but they are not structurally sound. Like, I can bend this no problem very easily, so like a strong gust of wind, snap, and that's kind of what happened. So in case you're wondering, they broke. Yeah, So they snapped right through the foam core. Right through it, straight through. Yep, straight through the foam core. And I had one wing left. I know how to fix it now, and I actually plan on doing a tutorial video on me fixing my wings soon. So I don't want to go into too much detail about how I'm going to fix them. But now for story time about the contest. So at first, everything was awesome. I finished my wings in time for Friday. I had a photo shoot Friday. I get to the photo shoot. The hot glue on my wings melts in my car. My wings break. We get some awesome photos, cute photos. But I rush home instead of going to the convention to fix it because the contest is tomorrow. So I stay up all night until like 4 a.m. fixing these wings. And I ended up fixing them just as you see now. So with the screws and everything, the first time I didn't have screws on them. So they have the screws now, and I get to the convention, I do my pre-judging, everything's awesome. I go to another photo shoot with some awesome other people and get some really awesome other photos. And then as soon as I'm walking back to the convention, part of my wing breaks off. The top screw comes all the way off of the foam, and I want to cry. So I'm sitting here with my sister trying to fix it. I can't. So I rush over to the cosplay repair booth, which for PopCon ended up just being the cosplay judges because I guess there was some miscommunication between cosplay repair people, or they just didn't show up. I don't really know. One of the judges was super nice, and he's like, I have stuff in my room. If I have time, I will go get it, and I will let you know if I can fix it or not. So before the contest, I go there, and he apologizes because he didn't have time to go fix it. And I'm just like, that's fine, it's okay. I have one screw left. I think it'll hold up for the remainder of the contest. So I'm waiting in line for them to organize us and get the contest started, and the other one snaps. So I'm standing in the contest line with one wing. I want to cry at this point. Like, I was devastated. I didn't feel like walking. Why would I want to showcase something that's broken? So I went and sat down with my sister instead, and we watched the contest, and I just played with the stuff that I had bought during the convention. And then my sister's getting thirsty and getting tired. I have to go work soon. So she convinces me to start getting up and to go leave. So we start leaving, and this guy ends up stopping me at the door and talking to me about MatsuriCon, which I really want to go to, by the way. And I will have a link down to my Ko-Fi page if you want to help me pay for a hotel and ticket, which would be awesome. And as I'm standing there talking to him, they ended up getting to my category, and next thing you know, I'm hearing my name being called. What? I was under the impression that if you didn't walk the show, you were disqualified. But I still won. So I go up to get my award, and like the dude who couldn't fix my wings pulls me aside, and he's like, just because you couldn't walk, we weren't going to let you not compete because you put a lot of heart into it. Yeah, so I'm just standing there trying not to cry in my broken TinkerBell cosplay, and my sister's coming up to the stage with the wings as people are congratulating me, and people are like looking at the wings in her hand and like, oh my god, that's gorgeous. And it's just, I can't describe how awesome that felt. To work so hard on something and then to have it break, but still have people commend your work. It still makes me want to cry, to be honest. And that was the first time I've ever felt validated as a cosplayer. And I know we cosplay for fun. And nothing beats having little kids run up to you delighted because you're in their favorite cosplay, or just like the small moments between the people and you. But it also feels amazing to be able to have your work judged by other cosplayers and be like, yes, this work is good, you were doing good, keep doing what you were doing. It felt awesome. And I really, really hope to continue to grow and continue to enter contests and push my limits and learn new skills. So that is why TinkerBell is so special to me. She was already special before, but now she's something else. She is a part of who I am now. And I can't wait to continue improving her. I plan on doing a bunch more of her outfits. I'm actually designing a magical girl Tinkerbell to do, and I'm just so excited to continue on my cosplay journey, and I hope you guys continue with me. So, this is gonna be Freddie signing off, partly because I have nothing else to say, and partly because my dog is currently eating a dry erase marker. Dog for sale, cheap. He's nuts, but cute. Anyway, so have a good day. Have a good rest of summer break if you're on summer break. Yeah, I need to come up with a witty catchphrase to close these videos out. If you have any suggestions, please comment down below. Bye.